Our first speaker this evening is Alana Nesmith. Alana is a fourth-year student from Rock Hill, South Carolina, studying political science and communication arts and sciences. Currently, she's involved as president of the Multicultural Undergraduate Law Association. Additionally, Alana works as a peer advisor for the College of Liberal Arts and is a member of Lambda Pi Eta, the CAS Honor Society. Alana will be speaking about the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and the climate of being a Black woman at a predominantly white institution. She looks forward to exploring the potential of Penn State students and the State College community.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for that lovely introduction. Hopefully you haven't forgotten me that quickly, but if you have, my name is Alana Nesmith, a senior, double majoring in political science and communication arts and sciences. And I'll be talking to you today about the experience of Black students at a PWI and the importance of being equal. What's your experience as a Black woman at Penn State? Many of you may be wondering about the point of this question. Why would it matter? And who would even pose the question in the first place? It is an answer that I am expected to have for prospective students constantly, and often the number one or only question I receive. As a peer advisor and ambassador for the College of Liberal Arts, every time there's a prospective student event or meeting, the families of color always ask me to stay after or specifically request me. Although this question is not always immediate, it is always brought up at some point. Like all of you in this room, I love Penn State. I bleed blue and white. But as a Black woman at a predominantly white institution, I understand how these students feel when they ask me this question, because it's a question that I too have asked myself before I got here. As for the answer to my question, well, I have to be honest. And the truth is that it's fine, but it could be significantly better. While there are spaces and organizations on campus that cater to the needs of multicultural students, these spaces and programs do not receive nearly enough support as our white counterparts. At every student's new student convocation, the president always preaches about how Penn State will be your home away from home for the next 4 years, and how it is the place to find your place. How can we promise our student body that when a majority of the minority students here on campus feel differently? When we want all of our students to be engaged, the reality is that the lack of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is a significant deterrent to prospective and admitted students of color for the state of engagement. The experience of Black students at Penn State is one of resilience, challenge, and advocacy. What does this experience look like, and how can we do more? 73,394. That's the total number of undergraduate students at University Park alone. 15.3% belong to a minority demographic. Of that small percentage, 4.3% are Black. A similar percentage can be shown for the faculty and staff demographics. Of the 6,396 employees, only 202 identify as Black. The disparity might not be apparent at such a large campus with over 500 student organizations, large lectures, and bigger-than-life programs like Thon. But Black students feel it heavily every single day. I can count on just one hand how many professors of color I've had. And whenever I walk into a big lecture or a small honors class, I am often one of 2 Black students in the room. Students of color experience a psychological phenomenon called imposter syndrome in these spaces. This phenomenon is characterized by persistent self-doubt, inadequacy, and fraudulence, despite objective evidence of one's achievements. While this syndrome can happen to anyone, it occurs to minority students at PWIs, such as Penn State, at a much higher rate. Numerous studies on the effects of this syndrome show that those who experience it will have low self-esteem, decreased academic performance, increased symptoms of depression and anxiety, and an overall decrease in physical health. I stand before you today not only as an honor student, Paterno Fellow, president of my organization, and State of State speaker, but also as a Black woman who experiences imposter syndrome every day, who often shrinks herself and dims her light in her classes, in which I most certainly belong in. Should that ever be the case for new students here on campus? Now we know that DEIB programs work to combat imposter syndrome and improve student and faculty life overall. According to a study conducted at the Hamline University School of Business, implementing DEIB programs creates and affirms a welcoming environment for students and faculty. Centers such as the Paul Robeson Cultural Center, the Center for Gender Equity, and minority organizations are crucial to every piece of DEIB. Minority students here frequently use these spaces and credit them to their success and well-being at Penn State. I conducted several student interviews in preparation for this speech, and a common theme found in every one of them is that places such as the PRCC have become the true home away from home and safe space that the president promised students at their convocation. Students feel isolated walking around campus and cited feeling imposter syndrome in every space except those centered around DEIB. A good friend of mine stated, who I don't see in the audience, that cultural representation is important, and places such as the PRCC host events centered around that significantly more than the university does. The director of DEIB for the HR department, Nalini Christian Buddy, created employee resource groups to provide these spaces for the faculty and staff that serve this university, and to show that DEIB is found in more than just race, gender, and sexuality, but also expressed concern as a director that Penn State is going in the wrong direction with the current political climate. Just last semester, it was quietly announced that the Multicultural Resource Center would be closed. I, along with 10 other students, sat in a focus group advocating against the center's closure. We all used the center for various things, such as finding resources for scholarships and involvements, and seeking guidance and counseling from those who look just like us. The closure of this space is just another devastating blow to minority students. In 2022, we already lost the Promise Center for Racial Justice. In both cases, Penn State higher-ups have stated that they will look for different avenues to support and fund multicultural spaces, yet none of us have seen the results from that. Nearly all multicultural organizations and spaces struggle financially. These are spaces that we love and hold near and dear to our hearts. Yet when we walk past the stadium, currently being renovated for $700 million, or we attend the grander scale SPA events and see the hub third floor being renovated, and point, we know that the money being spent at these places are equally deserving as our own, and ask ourselves why we struggle to stay afloat while others thrive. The question is then posed, how can we be engaged at a university that does not seem to be engaged with us? Our official Penn State website boasts, the Pennsylvania State University is committed to and accountable for advancing equity, respect, and belonging in all forms. And diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are fundamental to the university's values and mission to support all members of our Commonwealth and beyond. Yet, currently, Penn State ranks 9th out of all Big Ten schools when ranking our diversity efforts. We have remained in this position consistently, hardly ever breaking into the top 5, which is disappointing considering the efforts that have been taken since the admission of the very first student of color in 1899. In 1969, the Penn State Frederick Douglass Association, now known as the Penn State Student Black Caucus, penned a list of demands to the then President Eric Walker, advocating for an increase of enrollment of Black students across the Commonwealth, hiring and offering tenure for more faculties of color, and providing Black academic and psychological staff and recruiters. Since then, Penn State has delivered lackluster results on this promise, which has faced numerous amounts of criticism over the years. Local publications such as Onward State and the Daily Collegian, and even national ones such as the Washington Post, have all criticized Penn State's lackluster commitment to DEIB, the latter stating that it appears that Penn State is abandoning its pledge. Vaughn is another beacon at Penn State that has also been under scrutiny due to its lack of diversity. Like many students, I was initially excited to participate in Thon during my first year. However, I was disappointed that no multicultural organization had a designated Thon chair, nor participated. When asked why, they all said the same thing, that Thon was not inclusive to other racial groups, and they experienced racism and mistreatment in the past when participating, such as consistently being pushed out of their designated spots in the stands, or not being equally showcased during their performances. Every year, the Thon DEIB chair is selected to bridge this gap and champion diversity in the dance for kids. And every year, it seems that this effort is put on the back burner and never comes to fruition. While I'm proud to say that I did participate in Thon this year, and that the African Students Association also had a Thon chair and raised money for the network for the first time, the bridge is still not fully mended. If the efforts and initiatives have always been advocated for and planned, how come in 2025 today, I'm asking you for the same initiatives again? Now, as a Penn Stater, I adore this school. I'm incredibly proud and honored to join the Alumni Association in a few short months. As a Black woman at a predominantly white institution, we must do better. I see Penn State, Onward State, and other news sources making continuous efforts to highlight and showcase more of the minority student life on social media and in their respective news outlets. Still, highlighting us while our organizations and spaces struggle to stay afloat due to a lack of members or due to financial struggles is disheartening and disingenuous. Penn State, my point to you is this: if you want to stay committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, you must support these programs and students on a wide scale, both financially and physically. On the screen before you is the same list of demands from the association in 1969. If we want to make Penn State a place where all students feel a sense of belonging, then we must actively push for these changes and more. Through student advocacy, administrative accountability, and collective action. I ask that you revisit the decisions surrounding the closure of the Center for Racial Justice, highlight the programs and community of the PRCC on a university-wide scale, and continue to hire and admit more students and faculty of color. There's a special phrase coined in the Black community here at Penn State. It's called "We are all we got." And I think it's high time that we evolve that phrase to "We are stronger together." Thank you.